I didn't really have any interest or any knowledge of food at all. I didn't go to culinary school, but I moved to Montreal and needed a job. As soon as I started working in this small luncheonette and they needed a baker, and they were like, have you worked in a restaurant before? And I was like, yeah, but I hadn't. I had no idea. But I really, wanted the job, and as soon as I started making pastries, I really fell in love with the physical aspect of it, of making things with my hands. That was it. I was totally hooked. My name is Natasha Pickowicz. I am the executive pastry chef for Matter House and run the pastry programs for Flora Coffee and Café Altro Paradiso. Today, I'm going to be making a hazelnut praline semifreddo with homemade hazelnut amaretti cookies swirled in and black cocoa sauce. A semifreddo, sort of semi-frozen. You can make a semifreddo by hand without an ice cream machine. You pour it into a mold and it sets in the mold. So you kind of get a lighter texture, kind of with a bit of chew. The ingredients are super simple for the cocoa sauce. It's just water, cocoa powder, glucose, which helps give sauces this beautiful, glossy finish with tons of body, but without making it too sweet. Granulated sugar and a little bit of kosher salt. Basically, the mix of this is so simple, it's just everything into the pot, and we're gonna whisk it all together so that the glucose doesn't sink to the bottom and that the cocoa powder dissolves evenly. You wanna start at low at first so that you're not scorching any of the ingredients, and then we're gonna emulsify it using a whisk. And then what we're gonna do is bring it up to an even simmer and let it roll for about a minute. And that's gonna just help emulsify it, reduce it slightly. Coming together. So at a certain point I like to switch to a spatula because sometimes the cocoa powder can kind of settle in the edges. Make sure I'm running it around, making sure that the bottom isn't scalding. It's not gonna be like a hard simmer, but there is gonna be some sort of action on the surface. I'll let it ride for maybe 10 more seconds, and then we can turn it out into a bowl, press some plastic on it. I think the whole process, start to finish, shouldn't take more than 10 minutes. And then you could throw it in your fridge, put it in a jar. We're going to make a hazelnut amaretti cookie to fold into the semifreddo. So it's basically just a meringue-based cookie. We're gonna start with the egg whites. Always wanna make sure that your egg whites are truly room temperature. It's gonna whip up faster. Just really crank it right out the gate, and I'll add the salt first, and then I'll wait for the whites to foam up and sort of be on their way before I start adding the granulated sugar. The whites, it's sort of turning a little bit opaque, they're frothing up like crazy, so I'll just flick in a little sugar, a little bit at a time, and then I'll wait for it to really come up before I add the vanilla extract. So while I'm doing that, I'll put my dries together, just really well toasted hazelnuts for 15 minutes at about a 300-degree oven, and then buzz them up until they're super fine in the food processor. This is pretty much there, and then I'll add my vanilla extract. You don't want it to be too stiff, so it kind of is ribboning at the bottom of your bowl like that. It's kind of spooling at the bottom. So to this, we're gonna add a little bit of flour. Powdered sugar. So I'll sift this in so it doesn't clump up when I whisk it into the hazelnuts. And then whisk this all together. Now we're gonna fold this white in, rotate the bowl, and kind of pull from the middle and pull out to the sides. You don't wanna deflate all the work that you put into this cookie by sort of pressing or applying too much pressure. All I'm really doing is pulling up what's on the bottom and folding it over onto the top. I like to just scoop right onto a baking sheet that is sprayed with a nonstick spray, piece of parchment paper. You could use a spoon and just kind of flick it off with your finger onto the tray, but this way I know they're all the same size. So I'll kind of give myself enough space for them to spread. Once you have your cookies prepped on the baking sheet, it takes about 15 minutes at a 325 oven with a high fan if you have a convection setting, rotating halfway through to make sure that they are coloring evenly. And then we'll pull them just when they've started to set up, maybe cracking a little bit on the surface. Once you have your cocoa sauce ready and the cookies are baked off, I make the whipped cream obviously love using the most high quality cream you can manage. So any kind of like great heavy cream that feels a little bit sweet, that has tons of character to it, it's gonna really make a difference in what the parfait tastes like at the end. So I always start with cream that is very cold. It's much easier to whip up. This is 3 cups. So this will whip up to twice its volume that you started with. A little bit of kosher salt. And then this mixture, the brand of it is called Versa Whip. It's a stabilizer that's natural. So you're gonna get great height and like stability from the whip as we sort of are incorporating things that are heavier and are gonna wanna make it fall a little bit more. But a little bit goes a long way. So, you know, this is probably maybe 1/8 of a teaspoon. There's something kind of satisfying about bringing it all together by hand in the big mixing bowl. Then I can control how far I wanna take it. You could even refrigerate your bowl in advance, so everything is kind of cold. So it's already like thickening up, kind of like creme fraiche, but we really want it to hold a stiff peak, and that's it. So now we're gonna make the sort of hazelnut cream part that we're gonna fold into the semifreddo. The basis of this is this like decadent hazelnut praline spread. This is Valrhona. This is the brand that I like to use at the restaurant, but in a pinch you could use like a chocolate hazelnut spread like Nutella, or you could use like a smooth nut butter that you think is really delicious. We have some yolks. So the yolks that we saved from the amaretti cookie, where we just use the whites, we're gonna use the rest of those eggs as the yolks to form the base of this sauce. We'll just put these in this bowl here, and then to flavor and sort of thicken this mixture, I have a little bit of white sugar, salt, a bit of vanilla extract, and then bourbon whiskey. So I'll start with mixing the yolks up. So as soon as I add these ingredients, I'm just gonna start agitating them and not really stop. But what cooking it over this steaming water is gonna do is make it voluminous, kind of cook out any graininess to this, and aerate it. And then as soon as you're kind of applying any heat to it, you can't stop moving it around. So as I'm doing it, I can see that the sugar is sort of dissolving and that the mixture is lightening up a bit in color. But I'll also like put my finger in and sort of take its temperature. So I'm looking for the mixture to feel kind of warm to the touch. This is like warm, which is perfect. So I'm gonna take it off the heat and then keep working it. Beat the heat out of it just for a minute. And then we're gonna stream in the praline. Mixing in this paste actually stiffens it up a bit, and that's it. Now we have everything we need to make the semifreddo. So we have this whipped cream that we made, this sort of praline cream, the hazelnut cookies that we just baked. I just will crumble these cookies up by hand, and then this chocolate sauce, and then this pan that we lined. The trick for lining any kind of cake loaf pan with plastic wrap, so you eliminate that static where the plastic tears and you can't get into place. I'll just wet my fingers and dab water, and that's sort of the glue, and it instantly goes in. All of this is gonna get poured and smoothed out into here. Whip up the cream a touch more, especially if you made it earlier and it's been sitting in your fridge, just to sort of get it back. When you're folding something, you want a nice big bowl. You don't want to be all suffocated in this small bowl and you have nowhere to work, and then you want to undermix it so you're preserving these beautiful swirly layers. And then I'll pour all of this hazelnut cream right into the center. And then all the cookies on top of that. So now I'll just begin folding. So again, I really want to undermix. So I'm bringing it up from the center over just like that. And it's still not even 10% of the way there. And add this chocolate sauce. You just drizzle it. Everyone wants to eat it at this point. It looks so beautiful, it's like a big mess. But for me, the magic is what happens once it gets really cold. It's pretty, right? We really want to maintain this uneven look. We don't want it to just be brown, you know? So I'll add a little bit more right before it goes into the pan. The act of even pouring it into the pan is gonna continue to mix it. So I'll just move it around one more time. And then, yeah, it's just super marbled, really pretty. I'm gonna portion this into this Pullman pan. It has nice kind of 90-degree rigid sides. that I line with plastic wrap so I can actually remove it later when I'm ready to eat it. And then you want to get it into the freezer. Depending on your freezer, depending on how many times you open your freezer and you're pulling other things out of it. But for me, uninterrupted for overnight or up to a day, because you really want it to be super set up when you're ready to portion into it. Okay. And then you kind of loosen the plastic around the edges. And I'll take an offset and kind of wedge it out. But it might have to sit on your counter just for a minute so the plastic doesn't tear when you try to get it out of the mold. But it's just so satisfying to have like a frozen dessert that doesn't require an ice cream machine. Like, I don't have an ice cream machine at home. Like, I don't have anything at home. I don't want to do that. There we go. Okay, out of the pan, but you can see like, it has this beautiful sort of marbling effect. So you can peel the plastic away. You kind of get this nice striation, and you can see like the whip, and you can see the swirls of praline and the cocoa sauce and the chunks of the cookie. So the way that we plate this at the restaurant is I'll just do a spoonful of sauce on the plate, and then we'll cut nice, you want like a nice mouthful of it. I finish basically everything with crushed gray salt. Again, it's not about adding salt, it's more just about enhancing the flavors that are already in your dish. And that's it. Buon appetito. It has lots of great chew from the yolks, it has richness from all the nuts, it has that chocolate hazelnut combo that people really love, and it's not that sweet either. So it's like refreshing and I think pretty easy to make, and who doesn't love hazelnuts and chocolate?